Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook for whenever you're in Florida. It's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado. Coming soon to more states, too. Sign up today and you could win $150 in bonus bets. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but you also get $150 in extra bonus bets. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos daily, plus big legendary reward drops every single Thursday. It's like gifts under the tree. So whenever you're listening, just open the app up and check out what you've got waiting for you. Download the Hard Rock Bet now and make your first deposit. What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday night football and happy night to the Detroit Lions, who win a must-win, save their season, gut check game against the red-hot Dallas Cowboys. Before we dive into any football, though, I got to tell you about my friends. Well, actually, before that, I need you to subscribe to this podcast. I need you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We appreciate everyone. Thanks for all you guys that send me those, I think they're YouTube raps. A lot of you guys watching and listening to a lot of this content. I really appreciate it. And for those of you that are in my top, like 0.01%, you guys are animals. I can't imagine watching that much of myself, but I truly appreciate it. So, obviously, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, share with your friends. We appreciate you. And we'll talk about this game. A huge win tonight for Detroit. A little bit, for Dallas. I mean, Dak tried, but CeeDee Lamb gets hurt. I think George Pickens tonight had some moments where you're like, well, how much we got to pay him? What's the number this offseason? I don't want to say this officially ends Dallas's chances, but it was a good night for Philly, who did not have a good day. Well, I guess they knew about Jalen Carter a couple days ago, but have obviously had a rough couple weeks. So we'll dive into some of that. It's Fugazi Friday, so have a couple for you. I saw Ben say something about Tomlin going to coach at State College. The Penn State coaching search is gigantic, Fugazi. They can't get anyone to take their job. And Lane Kiffin's dog. Was it actually his dog? So we'll dive into all that tonight and talk a little football before we get out of here. But, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this show, GameTime. Best ticketing app in America. I've been using them for years. You should too. You can search for any event, obviously college football, NFL football. Easiest way to get tickets. They have tickets as low as $100 to go to an NFL football game. And the price that you see when you're scrolling around, when you're looking at a stadium, is the price that you will pay when you check out. There are no hidden fees. So any event you want to go to, also including concerts and comedy shows, they got you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying pro football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, that's JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the GameTime app today. I was thinking about this tonight, when the game was, I think, 27-9 at one point. It obviously got within 3 points in the fourth quarter, but then Detroit pulled again with Dan Campbell putting his cojones on the table when he called a nice play-action shot to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who essentially iced the game. When your back's against the wall, and the Lions' back was against the wall, I don't know about you, but we've all been through trying times. I have been fired from a couple jobs. My back's been against the wall. I do think you got to stand on two things. One thing that is 100% required for anyone, regardless of the industry you're in, you got to be mentally tough, right? You cannot mentally break because it'll just get worse. And to me, too, you got to lean into whatever you're good at and almost double down. That's the only way to get out when you're in a shitty situation professionally. And the Detroit Lions were in that position tonight. They're back, and their season was against the line. And obviously, in football, it's mentally and physically that you got to lean into when it comes to toughness. And I thought the game was set, or at least the tone was set for the Lions in pregame warmups when Dan Campbell last week was like, Amon-Ra's going to miss some time. And to me, your culture for a football team obviously is set by the head coach. They determine the type of practices you have, how intense your days are. I mean, the majority of football is not the 3 hours you see on game day. It's the hours upon hours, Monday through Saturday. You spend in the facility, you're training. It's a grind. And the head coach really sets that. But he sets that through the type guys that they acquire. And in college, through recruiting or the transfer portal. And in the NFL, through draft and free agency. You develop the culture through the type guys that you have run your team. And your best players usually dictate how far you're going to go. And I remember Dan Campbell earlier this season said, I'm never really get that worried about our squad because our best players are our hardest workers and most focused guys. And tonight, St. Brown, when you have an ankle injury and you're a wide receiver, like you can gut it out a little bit at like guard or even quarterback because you're kind of playing within a phone booth. Not as much now at quarterback because there's so much, quarterback run and scrambling around. The old days when you kind of just stayed in the pocket. But St. Brown's toughness, to me, set the tone for the game. Like, hey, guys, yeah, we're not going to be the number one seed like last year, but we sure as hell are not going down tonight. And I didn't accept all this money. I'm not one of the leaders and one of the best players in the league, 3 straight years in the Pro Bowl. I'm a highly paid guy, and the coach relies on me to set the tone from a toughness standpoint on offense. I'm the guy going over the middle. I'm the guy blocking. I'm the guy who, for years now, have been one of the leaders of one of the better teams in the league. And to me, it was like, okay. And the first play of the game, right to 14 on a quick out route. I love that guy. I mean, that guy could play. There is not a good coach in the history of this sport or a good team in the history of the NFL that wouldn't want that guy in the trenches with him. And then to me, the game as it went was like, our defense has problems. Our secondary is not good. And hell, Brian Branch is getting carted off, toward the end of the game, right? Our pass rush is okay, but our defense isn't good. So we're going to have to win games, even if our defense is playing as hard as they possibly can. And they did early in that game. They were flying around. They're trying. They just have physical limitations, right? CeeDee Lamb, before he got the concussion, felt like he was on pace for like 350 yards. It was like they could not stop this guy. And in fairness, like, who the hell's going to cover him? You got to rely on your best players. So St. Brown says, like, we are a tough team. Dan, me, that's how we roll. But then it's like Jahmyr Gibbs has to dominate in this game. Jameson Williams has to dominate in this game. And that's what happened. Because the one thing that's a bugaboo for the Cowboys, and they've played a lot better, right, defensively over the course of the last month. The defensive tackles up the middle, the young kid from Boston College, the second-round pick, he's really good. Overshown's back. Their defense has been much better. But you could tell the team speed of the Lions was on a different level than the Cowboys. And tonight, when you look, Jameson Williams, 7 catches for 96 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 catches for 92 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 7 catches for 77 yards. He also obviously had 3 rushing touchdowns. David Montgomery had the big 35-yard touchdown. So their best offensive players completely dominated tonight. And that was the difference in the game. It was like you cannot stop the speed of Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams. And they made big play after big play after big play. And it felt like all their guys, starting with St. Brown, setting the tone, that first play of the game, but really in warmups, and I'm sure the last couple of days, like, guys, I'm playing. Maybe gets shot up, gets double tapped or double taped. Not sure what he did, but it's pretty rare that you see a guy. It's not like they were just lying when he leaves the game last week. It's like he's going to be a while, and then he's able to play. Like, That's really, really impressive, especially at that position. But kind of speaks the type guy he is. And those type guys you want. And that's the reason the Lions, when I mean, their season's on the line, they lose tonight, they're not making the playoffs. No chance. I mean, it's over. And they're still not guaranteed, but they definitely are alive now. And I thought the performance by Gibbs and Jamison Williams was freaking awesome. And obviously, Jared Goff played well. There was just a level of that offense. And they had these moments last year where it's like, guys, especially at home, we're going to rely on you. More than likely, the Cowboys are going to score. At the beginning of the game, you would have said somewhere between 27 and 32 points. So I think if you're the Lions to start the game, like we need 35. And we don't have much margin for error. And Dan Campbell's a guy that I don't want to say taking shit because I know Colin's hard on him about the offensive coordinator situation. You know, you got to have a more exhaustive search when you're replacing a guy like Ben Johnson. You know, hiring Johnny Morton, who clearly was a failure. Dan Campbell's already taking the play calling back. I like Dave Shaw a lot. Every time I've ever dealt with him or been around him, he was always awesome to me. His success at Stanford spoke for itself. But when I think David Shaw, he's not really an innovator on offense. He really was kind of a carbon copy of Jim Harbaugh, which I respected. Old school, between the tackles. They kind of tried to spread it out at the end of his Stanford tenure. I think they brought a guy from like Wake Forest in to run the offense. At the time, Wake Forest was like running and gunning and scoring a bunch of points. It did not work. Like David Shaw's background, old school, two tight ends, two running backs, like going back to like the 90s. He was a John Gruden guy. And, you know, Dan Campbell just had to take it into his own hands and called a really, really good game tonight. And I think Lions fans have DM'd me this. Like one thing that changed once he took it away from Johnny Morton was the explosion of Jameson Williams. And to me, like you can't teach speed. I mean, him and Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, the speed in which they play is just at a different level, right? I mean, compare that to George Pickens. Like, George, you running? George, are you going full speed? Mike Tomlin's like, I told you. I told you guys. This is the George Pickens. George is like, I'm just chilling. I'm just chilling. Meanwhile, CD's over there. His elbow's pointing this way. He's got a concussion. He's got 150 yards. He's like, George, come on, man. Even the play where Dak threw the slant, I think Dan Campbell manifested the interception to start the second half because they come out, and I actually kind of enjoy, I give the NFL credit on this one. They created that rule this year that both coaches want us to talk at the end of the half and want us to talk at the beginning of the second half. You kind of just get a little star power of the two coaches, and Dan Campbell's like, we just got to get a turnover right here, get the ball back, and start running. First play, Dak, slant. George kind of, I don't know, doesn't stick his arm out. And, you know, you could say the DB made a play, but then you see Dak, like, George, you have to attack the ball. Type stuff you learn in, like, high-level high school football. And it just kind of felt that, you know, George going through the motions. I feel like Dak's playing his ass off. The sixth-round pick was playing his ass off. Javante's playing their ass off. They're really trying. Meanwhile, everyone on the Lions is just playing their balls off. And listen, defensively, like I said, this team has no chance to go far in the playoffs. None, just like last year. They just do not have a defense. And if you don't have a defense, you got no shot. I think Pat Riley's old thing, like you can't rebound, no rebounds, no rings. It's like no defensive stops. You can't cover anybody. It's not going to work out. But offensively, when they get on, they can hang with you just because they can score points. Clearly, they're built for a dome where their team speed can really show. And listen, you got to give Dan Campbell credit. He had the glasses on. He's calling the plays, and he was dialing up pretty well. And he was exposing their lack of team speed in the middle of the field with the linebacker play, running those little like option or choice routes with Jahmyr Gibbs, who was just flying and hitting Jamison Williams over the middle of the field and just letting him scoot. And I thought the Lions today that was a gut check win. They might have limitations on their ceiling this year. They obviously some stuff's out of their control. I think where they're sitting today, they got to root for a couple things here. I think if you're them, you either need the Bears or the Packers to win both these next two games over the next 13 days. And I think in a perfect world, uh, the way it shapes up, I think you're rooting for Green Bay to sweep the Bears and then the Niners to beat the Bears, and then you play the Bears at the end of the season. Now, I don't know how realistic that is. It's hard to bet against the Bears the way the season is going. Feels like they're like a team of destiny right now. But I think that's what you would be rooting for if you're the Lions. But still, like, you got some catching up to do. The 49ers next game off the bye is the Titans. They'll have 10 wins. So, you still got to scratch and claw. When your defense is this limited because of the injuries, it's kind of started to hit me. We don't really talk about Detroit's field, but like MetLife gets crushed because, the turf. And I do wonder, is there something with the Lions turf? Do they have a cheap turf? The amount of, and it feels like it's more Lions than the other team. Obviously, Brandt's at the end of the game, but there were three or four other guys. Even when guys get up, you're just like, what's going on? How do the Lions lose two? It feels like the Niners early in the season. It's like they lose three or four guys a game. Somehow CD comes down. Honestly, I thought he had dislocated his elbow, and maybe it was just the way his body dexterity works, but it looked to me like he popped in his elbow. I'm like, oh my God. And it actually wasn't. He was completely fine. It turned out he had a concussion. But that was the play. If CD would have been a Lion, his shoulder and his elbow would have been dislocated, and he would have been out for the season. So props to the Lions. Props for Dan Campbell. Kelvin Shepard is playing, and this is where Aaron Glenn got a lot of credit. And defense is a lot about effort. Think about like basic basketball. Like defense, obviously, to be a great player like Myles Garrett or Ray Lewis or whoever, there's a level of talent and that you have to possess. But there are a lot of guys in the NFL who do not possess Pro Bowl upside, that just play their balls off, that are smart, that are willing tacklers, that just play with their hair on fire. And that's, I thought the Lions couldn't have played any harder. You say, John, it's the NFL. There are a lot of teams that kind of go through the motions. And this is a team that showed a lot of pride tonight. I respect, I've been saying this for a while, the hell out of Dan Campbell and what he's done to resurrect this franchise that, let's face it, was a complete joke. And on the flip side, like, it felt like the game was a little off from the beginning for the Cowboys. It was like something was just off. And, CD was dominating the game. And they were still, it was like 20-9. You're like, this is not the type game Dallas wants to be in. Usually, instead of field goals, they're scoring touchdowns. The weapon they have of Brandon Aubrey, he's hitting 57 yards, hitting 63 yards. You talk about a weapon. But then when CD goes out, and it really puts the magnifying glass on George Pickens, because listen, I don't care what you're in, a relationship, a company, a football team, when things are going well, right? When you're in the honeymoon phase, when the company's printing cash, when the football team is winning, everyone's got smiles on their face. Historically, like, there's been like two miserable SOBs when you win. Bill Belichick, Nick Saban. They've always said, anyone that's ever worked for Nick Saban, they're like, when he's at his best is when we lose. He's the happiest. When we win, everyone's on pins and needles. Yeah, the Cowboys, like, their owner, and we're all guilty of this. We're like, damn, Dallas is humming. Listen, they were fun to watch. Beat the Chiefs, come back against the Eagles, destroy the Raiders, end Chip Kelly's career. It's like this team is just kind of badass right now. They're scoring on left and right. Brian Schottenheimer's being asked about his number one offense. He's got all these new pieces on defense. They're a fun team. And then tonight, you're like, this kind of feels like a little earlier in the season, Dallas. And then when the magnifying glass went on George, I don't pretend to be a wide receiver coach. Been around a few good ones in my day. It's one of the positions that most of us that grow up on Madden, you kind of focus on. You live long enough, you get to, what the good ones look like. And there's no disputing George's physical gifts and his talent. But there was a little laissez-faire effort tonight. And some of those routes, you could tell Dak was like, problem is he couldn't totally lay into him because he needed him. And it just felt like his head, that was the guy the Steelers traded. Now, listen, you play 17 games, you're going to have some bad games. He has been remarkable this season. So I'm not trying to act like he's some scrub or whatever. But tonight, when they really needed him, didn't feel like he was there mentally. I mean, he had 5 catches for 37 yards. I feel like I don't even remember 2 of them. He had the one nice one at the goal line, which he fumbled. Don't totally blame him. He was trying to make a play. But there were just some of these routes where it looked like he's not even trying. Now, maybe in his mind, he's the third or fourth option. I don't know. But that was a night that you feel better if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan or a Pittsburgh Steelers front office member, Mike Tomlin, or anyone in that crew. Because that was the guy that they traded and felt good about trading. That was not the guy who, before this game, had more yards and was more productive than the entire Steelers wide receiver room. And this also brings into question down the stretch of this season. Now, the Dallas, I mean, if the Eagles, we'll dive into them in a second, but it's going to be a lot harder for the Cowboys to win the division now. They would need the Eagles to seriously implode. You're judging this guy on, okay, it's been good, but now it's like the final stretch. Are you still playing your balls off? Or have we arrived, right? Because the going rate for wide receivers is not cheap. I mean, the 49ers made a catastrophic mistake in Brandon Ayuk. Now, they got very lucky that somehow they got $25 million back. Still not quite sure how that happened. But wide receiver mistakes are not tight ends or linebackers. They are extremely expensive. Average guys want $25 million a year. So, and Jerry, his negotiation tactics, when he likes you, he ends up paying you. Some would say overpaying you. And I think this is just a situation to monitor. It was always going to be interesting. Like, if George had some incredible, like, his pace never stopped. Like, were they really about to give him like $80, $90 million guaranteed? Who knows? I mean, nothing is out of the realm of possibility when it comes to Jerry and it comes to the Cowboys. But I think you have nights like tonight where you go, we got to keep letting this play out. Obviously, you're not just probably going to let him walk, but it's a more complicated situation than when he's playing the Raiders going for 150 yards. And he can make these plays, and he did it the other night against on Thanksgiving. 57 million people watched. He's catching slants. He got 4 slants for like 80 yards. The slant is like a 7-yard route. So there's no one disputes his ability, his upside, his playmaking capabilities. But then tonight, it's like, this is a business. And I do like investing in St. Brown's. That, yeah, not the physically most gifted guy in the league. Not the tallest, not the fastest. But you know what that motherfucker will do? Go to war for me. Not when times are great and we're headed to the number 1 seed. How about when we're 7-5 and our season's on the line? And his ankle looks like a grapefruit. You think he's going to go above and beyond to ice it, to rehab it, to stem cell it, to do whatever it takes to put himself in position to maybe be 80% to play a game? And the answer is hell yeah. I'm watching George. It's like, hey, George, our season's kind of on the line too. I don't know if you saw the ticker today, but Jalen Carter had surgery. I had to read this on both shoulders. Injections, again, not a doctor. Did enough Twitter research to know that, yeah, he could miss a couple weeks. He's definitely out Monday. It's like all of a sudden the Eagles, I mean, I don't know where on the hierarchy of players, but he sure is held near the top. And in terms of like most unblockable and unstoppable when he's on, he's probably number 1 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pretty big blow. Now, that wasn't news for them today. I think it happened a couple days ago. It broke to us civilians, the public. But it's like, I had a lot of respect for the way most of the guys on Dallas, like, I thought Dallas's effort was high. Like, their left tackle, who's a backup, was having a rough night. He's a backup. They got some good pass rushers. Aiden Hutchinson, like a super high-end pass rusher. He's not going to be able to block him. I mean, Dak was getting punished tonight. How many times was he sacked tonight? 5 for 50? If I had to guess, I didn't see the final numbers. Hit 17, 18 times? I mean, he was getting peppered. And that's the thing. That's the thing in football. It's like you get in these big games, and tonight was a massive game because this wasn't your typical Thursday night game. They were both on normal rest because they played last Thursday. Both these two teams now, the Cowboys have this playoff life, and the Lions have this holding on to a thread of what has been a consistent playoff team. And all of a sudden they meet tonight. And I thought like 99% of the guys are just playing their hair with their hair on fire and their balls off. Some guys are better than others, so it looks better. But the defining moment of St. Brown and then the kind of lackadaisical nature of George Pickens was on full display. And this is a business. And if there was no salary cap, Jerry could pay whoever, and it wouldn't matter. But there is, and you got to invest in the right people. And when you invest in the right people, when the tough times hit, those are the type guys that come through. That's why the Chiefs have had so much success because they're guys mentally and physically, obviously they're talented, but they're mentally and physically so tough, right? All those Patriot teams, hell, they didn't even have like the best players. How many Hall of Famers did they have in the second iteration of the dynasty from 2012 to 19? Tom and Gronk? That was kind of it. But they had a ton of guys who were tough as shit, smart as shit. And when it came to the game, you're going to have to, take their helmet and their shoulder pads away. If they were 50%, they were on the field. And the Lions got a lot of guys like that. And they deserve a lot of credit. And listen, the Cowboys do too. I mean, Javonte Williams, guy's resurrected his career. That guy runs hard. I have a lot of respect for. I think a lot of people, definitely in the NFL circles, fans, fantasy people, kind of wrote his career off, and he's had a good season. But I think some of their defensive warts showed up tonight. Now, in fairness, how many teams have guys that can run with Gibbs and Jamison Williams? And the answer is not many. Right. I mean, I don't know. Deion Sanders and Ed Reed aren't walking through that door. Like, what are you going to do when those guys are humming and you're not getting? I mean, the one way to slow down the Lions, and this is what the Cowboys had been doing pretty good. Now, Clowney was inactive tonight, was hit Jared Goff. A couple times early in that game, they did, and it kind of derailed them a little bit. I know there was the one controversial moment about the sack safety. They said the ball was out. It was iffy. I mean, there were some shitty calls. I've gotten to the point where it's like I have such little respect, not for them as humans. I mean, I'm sure they're a lot of good men, but God, most of these guys feel really bad at their jobs. And we got the technology. How are we? I mean, the PI on Ferguson at the end. There was the pass interference on Pickens that would have put him at the 1 yard line, but they called it like a double penalty. There was also like a defensive holding or an offensive holding. It was like, what? Or it was hands to the face on Ferguson or something. It's like, what's going on here? And that's the one thing with the NFL. They don't care. I mean, they're laughing all the way to the bank. They do not care. I see these clips. I saw my hometown, Sacramento. Well, it's not. I grew up in Davis, but right across the causeway. There was a fan thrown out the other day for screaming at Zach LaVine for saying he paid money to sit in the front row, and he was disgusted watching him play. How little he cared, how little effort he put on defense, and the fan got thrown out. And I was thinking, I don't think you guys realize how little the NBA cares about you sitting wherever. They will throw anyone out. They care about the television deals. That's where they make their money. They don't give a shit about you. The NFL, you can complain all the way, all night, all day. Roger Goodell ain't losing an ounce of sleep. Probably, getting ready to go tee it off at Augusta. They're probably close for the winter, but he does not care. So the officials, I'm not going to get too caught up because in most of these big games are just atrocious, and I don't really know what we can do. Like I said, I think one of the big winners tonight, as well as the Lions, had to be Philly, because if Dallas wins this game with Jalen being out, the pressure on them come Monday night would have been immense. Now, even if they lose, they still got a little breathing room. It felt like when that came across, and I learned today when I was recording with Stuckey, he's like, Jalen Carter's out. I'm like, Jalen Carter? Jalen who? Like, yeah, shoulders. I'm like, what? I mean, that's a pretty big blow. It's also just something to monitor. Anytime a guy first gets injured, sometimes it's St. Brown. He's back the next week. And sometimes we just don't see him for like a month. So you just never know. That's really concerning. And that's a problem. But it is what it is. And now Philly, I mean, if they win on Monday night against the Chargers, when you look at their schedule, you'd be like, okay, if they can win that game on the road, 3,000 miles away, they would feel I don't want to say a lock because you just never know. There things get weird fast, but they would be in the complete driver's seat with 9 wins and the Cowboys only having 6. Okay, a couple quick Fugazis. We got a lot going on. Okay, we, we- I really quick on Big Ben. I saw he's got a podcast. I think he does in his basement, which looks enormous. Looks pretty badass. Probably got a big pad in Pittsburgh. There's some comments. James Harrison said that Tomlin's good, not great. Big Ben's basically like he should go coach Penn State. It's like, guys, I mean, I don't know what your personal relationships are with the guy, but both of you had a lot of success with him. It felt like kind of backhanded jabs at the guy, but specifically the Penn State thing. I used to think like 4 years ago when they ended up hiring Lincoln Riley, Mike Tomlin, if he had any interest, USC would be like an incredible spot for him, right? Bright lights, big city. They paid Lincoln $120 million. They would blow you away with cash. You could live on the water. If he wanted to do that, I think like he would. They were going to the Big Ten. He could dominate recruiting, and it would just be like a glamorous job. And he was pissed off. I remember I watched his press conference when he was asked about it. Felt like he wanted to take the microphone and throw it at the report. Like he was offended. And I don't blame him. It's like, hey, motherfuckers, I go to the playoffs every year in the National Football League. You think I want to go to USC at the time was a complete embarrassment and coach college football? Are you guys crazy? But I always said, like, hey, it's USC, unlimited money, Tomlin's kind of Hollywood. It would work, right? Now, I get it. If I was him, I wouldn't want to go to the college either. But Ben going to Penn State, like, hey, Ben, you think Mike Tomlin's going to move to state college? Mike Tomlin, I mean, there are multiple jobs open right now. The Tennessee Titans and the New York Giants. If Mike Tomlin was, quote unquote, available or was just on the street, he would have been hired like 3 weeks ago by both. He is going to be, if he's available, the number one candidate by a mile in this cycle, which I got news for you, ain't a great cycle. Google some of the names, right? It's a lot of Robert Salas, who I like a lot as my defensive coordinator. I think just immediately make him a head coach feels a little risky to me. And I just think this notion, Big Ben saying he should go coach Penn State, it's like, hey, Ben, the Tennessee freaking Titans are a complete embarrassment. They don't have a coach. Do you think Mike Tomlin, if he's no longer wanted in Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tennessee Titans wouldn't take him, let alone the New York Giants? What are we talking about? Now, I do think Penn State, it also reflects one thing I think you got to be careful in life is I see people getting very offended, like Jimmy Sexton runs college football. He's got too much power. No, he just has all the power because it shows you how inept a lot of these different schools are at understanding the business of football. He has the leverage because he knows what he's doing. Clearly, a lot of these athletic directors, most of them are kind of embarrassments. I mean, really, they're not like, I think this notion, I'm not saying all of them, there are clearly some high level guys. There are also a lot of complete jokes. No different. There are a lot of people in sports, and maybe it's like this in other industries, where it's like, oh, just because this guy has a position. I mean, I've heard stories about conference commissioners, athletic directors, hell, even successful college head coaches. You'd be like, yeah, if you actually knew how little he actually did and the people behind, but he gets all the credit. It's the way the world kind of works. But when you fire a guy, and there have been a lot of rumors that Penn State really pissed off Jimmy Sexton because of the way they fired James Franklin. And I don't know if you've checked lately, but they don't have a football coach. And they try to get the BYU guy. Turns out the crumble cookie, crumble cookie is basically, diabetes in a 3-inch by 3-inch cookie. Google what's in those things. Don't get me wrong. Fat guy at heart, eating my fair share of crumble cookies. After I saw this Instagram, I'm like, I don't think I'm ever eating a crumble cookie again. Not great for you. That being said, they're like $75 a cookie, and the CEO of Crumble Cookie, printing money, big BYU guy. And so he made sure that they didn't steal his coach. And I thought, like, well, if Kalani Sitake, who I'm pretty sure is an LDS Mormon guy, like, I don't know why he would go to Penn State, stay at BYU when they have an unlimited amount of money. Potentially the number one pick in the NBA draft. Do you know that he didn't go to Kansas, Kentucky, or Duke? He went to BYU. Why? Because they paid him $7 million. Like, money ain't a big deal in the church. They got a lot of coin. And, Penn State, you piss off the wrong person, right? One thing I learned early, anyone knows this if they're in sales, who's the gatekeeper to the guy you want to talk to or the lady you want to talk to? If it's the assistant, you got to go through her. You better figure out a way to create a relationship with that assistant because that's the only way you're getting past that gate to get to the person that's going to have the decision-making power on what you want to sell them. And I just think Jimmy Sexton is the gatekeeper. And if you ain't playing the game, I remember when I worked for the Eagles, one thing, Howie, and I saw this back then, and it's clearly been true for the last decade plus. He's great with agents, especially the ones that matter. Why? They hold a lot of the cards. You need to deal with them. Historically, GM's been fucking agents. Well, it's like, do you want the player or not? Because if you think like the player's making the decision, it's not the way it works. How Micah Parsons just told you that. Guy just got $188 million. Talk to Dave. I'm not dealing. That's the way it works. So if you don't realize who's in power, that's on you. And I don't fault them if they wanted to fire James Franklin. But clearly it happened in an emotional state. And it looks to have backfired on them. Because I don't know if you noticed, but Jimmy Sexton placing guy over here, guy over there, guy over here, guy over there. He in full control. And that's just the way it is. That's the rules of engagement right now. So if you're going to play and everyone tries, and I know nothing about this guy beside what people write about him in The Athletic or talked about him when he fired James Franklin or that he worked with Matt Rule in this AD pack craft. But you can't be that good at your job if you find yourself in a position like this at some quote-unquote glamorous program. Mike Tomlin would quit before he went and coached Penn State. I do believe that. Another all-time potential Fugazi, again, allegedly, there have been rumors floating out there. And listen, there are a lot of rumors. And this is how you know if you're deep in the SEC Twitter accounts, message boards, a lot going on between Ole Miss and LSU. A lot of stories floating around out there, which makes me love it. There is nothing like SEC football. I mean, really nothing. It warms my heart. And there is a rumor that Juice Kiffin, who was allegedly Lane's dog, is not actually his dog. Doesn't actually live with Lane Kiffin, lives with a handler. And a lot of people think that he's not going to take it to LSU. And I do think if you are going to promote, like, listen, Kirk Herbstreit, I think pisses some people off, at least based on the comments you'll see on Twitter or social media. Taking his dog everywhere. Now, personally, my wife loves it. She always says, what time is College Game Day on? I want to see Peter. But the one thing you know, whether you like that the dog's able to travel with him to the Amazon Prime games and College Game Day and the game he's calling that night, or you don't, that is his freaking dog. And listen, as any dog owner knows, one, I like dogs more than 99% of society, right? And once you get a dog, whether you purchase or adopt or however you get the dog from a young age, or even like me who's comes into a dog's life after she had it forever, there is a love and a bond there that's pretty special. Even going back to the COVID draft, when we met Nike, Belichick's dog, you know what no one's ever argued? That's Belichick's fake dog that he just used to fuck her. No, that's his dog. He lets out in the morning before he goes to work. He comes home. He lets out at night. He feeds it. Like, take some responsibility. Haven't had a child yet, but part of having a dog is the responsibility that comes along with it. There are a lot of football coaches that have dogs. Part of it, too, if like you're going to be the family man, well, sometimes guess what with a dog? Your family chips in. Well, hey, I can't walk today. Can you give it a walk? Can you feed it? It's like, what do we got going on? Because I haven't had a big issue with Lane going to LSU. The way he handled it, it was never going to be clean. It was actually, from my standpoint, pretty entertaining. But if you have a fake dog, all for social media and a Twitter account and just PR, I'm going to judge you as kind of a D-bag. I really am. If it truly comes out, and this story's still, percolating, we'll see how it all ends up. If the dog's in his office at LSU and starts staying at his house, I'll give him a little bit of a pass. But as of right now, the dog living with the handler, and you can't be like, well, I'm a football coach and I don't have much time. Your family lives with you now. Your son's in high school, right? Your ex-wife, she living with you? What's going on there? I just think that's got to be an all-time Fugazi. You faked owning a dog for the PR and the publicity. That's the first time that I will support the Ole Miss crowd of, come on, bro. That's pretty low. And yeah, other than that, like I said, I right before I hit play today, I just heard this crazy noise coming from pipes under my house. And I told you about that water spill that I had the other day out of my front yard. And for those of you that don't, own a house and are renting somewhere, and sometimes you think like I want to own something, the power of being able to call someone to help you. And I had to call my landscaper Francisco, who's a badass. Since I moved in this house, I've had about 4 different landscapers. My buddy Jeff Fong, who I play golf with, big Arkansas guy, can't be happy with the new coach, but he's into Calipari, so he's probably doing okay. Actually, a Cowboy fan too. Love me some Jeff Fong. Hooked me up with this guy Francisco, and he's been a badass. I call him, I say, Francisco, we got this big leak. I told you guys about that, and he comes out, and I was like, okay, man, just knock on my door or whatever. If you find out what's going on, I don't even know what to say. And then all of a sudden, I hear in my backyard, he's like, amigo, amigo, and he's smiling. He's with I think one of his guys, and they're both laughing. And I come out there, and part of the reason I bought this house because we kind of remodeled it, but he had already done a big ass remodel, so he had like wiped out walls, opened it up, put these big doors in the back that can open up to the backyard. He had kind of done part of the backyard, so he had done a lot of legwork that made like if you could just kind of do some cosmetic upgrades, he had taken care of a lot of stuff. But the way he remodeled the backyard is like the slope of it kind of comes into the house, which is not what you're supposed to do. But it doesn't rain that much in Arizona, so it's not that big a deal. And there's like set of drains every like I don't know 5 feet. And so when it rains, if the water comes to the house, it all drains in there and comes out the front of the house. Well, I had this guy, I built this office in the backyard, and I think they needed some water, and they were using the hose for drywall or something. And this crazy rainstorm came, so I think they were doing something with the hose, and they like took off, to find cover. It was like a tornado, and I guess they just forgot about it. So for 2 days, it was just my hose. And so Francisco shows me the hose is just onto the drain and it's just coming out the front yard. I even had like this HOA security guard come by and put a flag. He's like, "You got to take care of this." I'm like, "I don't know what's going on." And it turned and in fairness, I didn't do it. So it's like, why would I even look at the hose? But when he showed me that it was just the hose on in the drain going out to the front yard and looking like yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. So, sometimes just do a perimeter check and you'll figure out this not actually a major problem. Have a great night. Adios. See you later.